It's not just an ordinary Tuesday. Welcome to Terrier Tuesdays, the show where you can get to know some of Boston University's best and brightest student athletes.
Welcome to another edition of Terrier Tuesdays. I'm Brian Kelly. I'm pleased to be joined today by Celeste Hubbard, field hockey alumni from the class of 2004. Thanks so much for joining us, Celeste.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I know a few weeks ago, the field hockey Instagram and social media and whatnot, we've been taking a look back at some of the alums and checking in with them. And you had mentioned it had been 20 years since you came to campus, and I know those numbers hit you. But
Big time.
Yeah, I want to go back just a little bit before that and how you got to be you from Michigan. Obviously, we don't have a lot from Michigan. You may know we did have a field hockey player a few years ago, Maddie McLean from there. So it's
yes.
interesting. Yep. But how was that process, and how'd you get there?
Yeah, I mean, it is funny for field hockey players. Field hockey is mostly a Northeastern popularized sport. It doesn't have a huge following in the Midwest where I'm originally from. And especially being a girl from Detroit, it's not exactly the common sport to take up being an inner city kid. But, I was actually introduced to the sport through my sister. She played for 4 years at Columbia University in New York, and she's a few years older than me. So I had the opportunity to watch her grow and fall in love with the sport and take it to that next level. So it really created that path for me to decide, like, hey, I love this sport. I enjoy doing it, and I want to be an athlete in college as well. So when it came to those final few years, those junior and senior years of high school, I really started to dedicate myself to that search and participating in the tournaments that would get me the proper exposure. And at one of those tournaments, I actually met Sally Starr. I'd been in conversations with a few different universities, but for me, Boston University had all the things I was looking for from an educational standpoint. And then as far as my athletic pursuits, I thought it had everything from being a college in the city to having the career paths, or allowing the career path I wanted to pursue, and then really being a top-notch field hockey program that I knew would push me athletically too. So that's how I landed at BU.
How was it that memories from that first few weeks, that first preseason, and getting adjusted and meeting your new teammates?
Yeah, it was extremely exciting. I mean, I don't think there's anything like your first year at college starting off as a fall preseason athlete. So there's really no other students on campus except you and the other fall athletes. So you get that little bit of introductory exposure to what on-campus life is like, but in a very structured environment, and extremely structured because you're up at 6 a.m. at breakfast by 7, on the field or in weightlifting by whatever, and then having 2-a-days all day long for what feels like every day of the week. So for me, though, it was a great introduction to just the campus life and that structure that would be necessary as a fall athlete. And then also we got to just spend a lot of quality time with our teammates and really developing the culture and learning each other's personalities on a much more personal level, because that's all you have to interact with. So I actually loved preseason as a freshman. It's the next several preseasons when I knew it was coming for me that was a lot harder to get through because they're not easy.
Yeah, of course, this year's been different. And Sally, right away, she's right in the first week of August. She's like, I've been doing preseasons now for over 40 years, and not to have one is awfully tough. But
it's crazy. I mean, I only had to do preseasons 4 years of college, and it never fails that every summer come around August, I'm literally thinking about, wow, kids are probably getting into preseason right now. You can't help but it's just part of your even natural routine as an adult 20 years later.
Freshman year, the team had some success, the conference title, went to the NCAA.
Yeah.
That must have been the first year and really getting a chance to experience that.
Yeah, I mean, it's still one of the, for sure, highlights for my career as a team, because we just had some incredible players, especially as a freshman, incredible players to learn from. I had some opportunities as a freshman to be on the field, which was a great learning experience. But my freshman year was actually completely insane. I had back injuries that really kept me out of commission for quite some time. I was being really challenged by my academics as I was a student in the School of Management. And I was away from home for an extended period of time, for longer than I ever had been. So it was extremely hard. But even thinking back to that freshman year, actually before this conversation, I thought, man, that's right. We did win the conference title that season, and we did get to the NCAAs. And even though I had gone through all of that, so much stress and essentially physical trauma, if you will, Sally really still, and the team stuck through it all with me, to the point where I was able to be on the field at the NCAAs and assisted one of the goals. And actually, I was thinking back to the finals of the conference championship. It was like the last 3 minutes of the game, and we had come up by 1 goal. And Sally, I was like, oh, great, we're about to win this. I'm just going to sit back on the sidelines now, and celebrate in a little bit. And Sally calls me down to her. I'm like, wow, there's 3 minutes left in the game. What could we be talking about? And she told me she was putting me in at kicker back, which, if you guys aren't familiar, it's when you pull your goalkeeper and you put someone else on the field that has the capacity to still run upfield, but also play defense and be able to kick the ball in defensive D if necessary. And as a freshman, I was like, are you sure? Are we sure we want to do this right now? And she's like, you got it. I got confidence in you. I know you can do it. This is what you're going to do. And so I actually got to be on the field when we won the match. And everyone just kind of like jumped on each other and was like, ah! And it was insane and it was awesome. So it's fun to relive those memories again and things that I haven't thought about probably forever.
Sure. Obviously, as time went on, team MVP and All-American as a senior, that must have been a nice way to cap everything.
Yeah, it certainly was. It was definitely a nice way to cap it, although I wish I think in our conference, it got really competitive, especially with Northeastern in my last couple of years at BU. And we were always right there. And unfortunately, as a team, we didn't come out with the awards or the trophies that I had hoped, but it was still very nice to be recognized as an individual for the efforts that I put in, but also just being able to apply everything I'd learned from the coaching staff and our team members along the way, to really hit a goal that I had from day one. Yeah.
Any other memories stick out, whether on or off the field with your classmates?
Well, a few on the field ones that, again, it's like these memories pop back into your head when you least expect it. But for some reason, for me, and it's especially odd because of the climate and the world that student athletes are living in now. But when I was an athlete and we played the national anthem before every match, it was always that moment where all of the warm-ups and the energy and the anticipation of the match was just kind of coming to a high point for me. And at the end of the national anthem, when the line says, and the home of the Braves, we used to always say, and the home of the Terriers, and we'd yell it and kind of run into our circle and get each other all riled up. So I really can't hear the national anthem in that final line without in my head saying, and the home of the Terriers. And then just honestly, the Terrier in and of itself, Sally always used the metaphor that, we're Terriers, we're scrappy, yeah. We're always going after it. We never say die. And never I just bring that attitude, never back down. Yeah. I just love those Terrier characteristics, and I still apply them to kind of how I attack things nowadays.
When was the last time you've been back to campus?
Last time I was back to campus was maybe 5 years ago. Okay. And I was actually in Boston for a work trip. So, and I hadn't been back to Boston before then in probably 10 years. So when I first graduated, I went back the year after I graduated, of course, for the Boston Marathon to hang out with all my friends that were still students. And, that's pretty much was my favorite holiday of the year. And then, I had a long time where I didn't get back to Boston. But when I did get back there about 4 or 5 years ago, I called Sally and Tracy up. It was last minute. So I was like, are you guys free to connect? And unfortunately, they were booked with some other things, but I still got to kind of walk campus and see how much has changed,
right,
but also have a lot of memories from the things that haven't changed as much and relive it all.
Right. So you saw the new field when you came by 5 years ago then, yes.
Yeah, and I still am super jealous.
Yeah.
We went from, when I was a freshman, we were playing on the field right outside of our dorm rooms and sleeper hall and everything. And then that transitioned into a field turf,
Right.
which we were no longer playing on. So for the final 3 years of my career at BU, we were transported from campus to MIT's field every day for practice. And that's just what it was. That's like, so now when I see the beautiful field, I feel for sure proud, and the girls are just lucky to have some beautiful facilities to be able to play the game they love on. So
Yeah.
more props.
Our associate head coach who just left to take the job at MIT, Sarah Shute, she was one of the last. Well, there was still a few years between then in New Balance Field, but so she played on Jack Berry Field, and she never thought she'd be going back there, and now she's going to be coaching. So
yeah, that's pretty funny. I saw that, and I was like, "Whoa, what did you know?"
So since BU, where has your career led you?
Well, since BU, I've essentially been working in advertising for the last 20-ish years. Actually, when I first graduated, I moved back to Michigan and I started coaching field hockey. The sport definitely had grown over the 4 years that I had been in college. So there was another high school that had joined our conference of teams, and they were looking for a JV coach. So I ended up coaching a bunch of young players who were new to the game, like brand new to the game. And that really honestly solidified this passion in me of working with young people. So it ends up coming full circle later in my career. But for that group of girls, it was just really exciting to introduce them to the game. They ended up going undefeated, so that never hurts either. And I figured I'd stop while I was ahead. So I actually only coached 1 year, and shortly thereafter, I ended up getting my first full-time job in advertising. So I've been working in advertising ever since. I stayed for 2 years in Michigan and then spent about 10 years of my career out in Los Angeles. So that's really where I started to grow to be able to work on global massive campaigns in the industry, from everything from Target to Starbucks to Lexus and Chevrolet and tons of other clients in between. Now I live in Atlanta, Georgia with my husband and our 2 daughters and 2 dogs. And my husband and I actually met when I was living in LA and he was in Atlanta, and we both happened to be working in advertising and met through the industry. So now we work together. We have an agency here in Atlanta, and we still get to thankfully work on a lot of sports related clients, such as launching the Atlanta United soccer team here in Atlanta. We also work with the Atlanta Falcons. We've done work with the Atlanta Hawks. So sports and the sports world and industry still plays a large part in the work that I do today.
MLS team, that's been incredible down there. I've seen they show the crowds.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's been it was the most successful, they say, sports launch of any team in professional sports. So I'll take that. Yeah. But the environment that's been created and just like the attitude of the team and the swagger, of course, in its first few years was just very Atlanta, and it's very new and different for the MLS. So it felt fresh and new. And I think the team really took that on. They're struggling a little this year with a lot of changes, but, we're still here for them, still doing great work, and it's exciting to be a part of. And that's one of the posters actually we did some work with 2 Chainz. So he's actually, the rapper 2 Chainz. He's on the top of the Mercedes-Benz Stadium here in Atlanta with 3 of the trophies that they had won a couple years ago. He's a big fan of the team. So it's been fun to get to work with him a bit too.
For sure. One of your daughters is a student athlete as well. How's that been sort of
Yes.
through the college sports world again?
I love it. It felt like a missing part of my soul. So she just started her sophomore year. She goes to the University of North Carolina at Greensboro, and she's a volleyball player. So when my husband and I had met, she was actually 14 going on 15 years old. She's my stepdaughter, and I looked at her when I first met her. I'm like, wow, she's pretty tall. She's like 5'11" at least at 14 years old. My husband's 6'4", and she was a ballet dancer. She was a ballerina, and I was like, well, that's cool. Ballet's cool. But she had kind of started to lose touch in that passion for ballet. And she just needed another avenue for her energy. So I was like, basketball? She said, no. And I was like, volleyball? And she's like, And now literally 4 years, 4 years later, because she started volleyball her sophomore year, 4 years later, now she's a Division I athlete. And honestly, countless hours of practice, training, and just dedication to pursuing that. So it's been really fun to be now on the sidelines, that parent who actually knew nothing about volleyball. So now I know what my dad felt watching field hockey and trying to coach her. And she's like, yeah, that's not how it works. And I'm like, okay, but still you can have more effort or jump higher. So it's been fun.
Well, believe it or not, this is going to be Coach Starr's 40th season at BU. So you would have got there halfway through her career in terms of where it is now. Hard to believe, and obviously lucky to have her.
Absolutely.
With all the accomplishments and the culture she's built for Bufa. And what is your bet? If you look back, maybe a good Sally story. I've heard some good ones over the years, but anything come to mind?
I've been trying to rack my brain and honestly, though, it's not necessarily specific stories that stick out, but it's a lot of the repetition of quotes and language that she always uses, because those are the things that have just stuck in my head that even just, again, pop up in the middle of regular life. And something she used to always say when we were playing defensive drills was that it needs to have a sense of organized chaos. It's going to feel chaotic. It's going to feel hectic, but you have to find organization in those moments. And literally, I think about that just with my work days. I have clients going crazy half the time. I have projects up and down and all over the place. And I repeat that now to my team, my staff members, we have to find organization in this chaos, because the chaos is going to be here regardless. So now we have to figure out how to manage and manipulate it to be workable and to still meet our end goal. Yeah. So for me, that's just one of that sense of finding calm in chaotic moments. That is a skill set that is applicable to every aspect of life. And I learned on the field.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. You still able to stay connected to the program a bit, check in on them over the years here?
Yeah.
And with your classmates?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, thankfully, social media came about right when I graduated. So it was much easier for us to all stay connected. And, even if we don't get to talk super often, we're always constantly seeing each other's updates on Instagram and LinkedIn and kind of tracking where each other are in life or in the world, really. And then this past year with COVID and, not the team not really being able to have the season that they were planning on, I think it's given everyone the opportunity to also take a step back and think about other ways that we can make use of our time in a meaningful way. And so thankfully, I think BU, the athletic department, Tracy and Sally included, have reconnected with a lot of the former players. And it's also allowed all of us to then reconnect with each other too. And that's just been fun. So I've become a member of our alumni association group, I guess, and just starting to put together various programs or continued opportunities for us to even give back to the current team, to hear what the current team and current players are going through and experiencing. And then also for all of us to reconnect with one another, even each other that weren't in overlapping classes or the same graduating classes. So that's been a really great, outcome of COVID forcing us all to reapproach things and also take a step back.
Yeah. Once a boofa, always a boofa, for sure.
Absolutely. And people still ask me what boofa means, and I'm not ashamed to wear the shorts that have it still on the butt.
One of the things that's been a success for the whole department in recent years has been Giving Day. Field hockey team a couple of years ago did a nice way of trying to get everyone involved and having people check in on what boofa means to them. And I remember this when you posted one, you showed off the schedule card. And for someone on my end of things, the communication side, we put those things together, and they get used during the season, but they never see them again. But it was nice to see that after all these years, that one has been kept and it means something to someone.
Yeah, I figure it might be worth money someday. No, no, but it definitely holds sentimental value for sure. And it's interesting because it's something that I have my own collection of, whether it's newspaper articles or our programs from every season. But my parents had actually held on to this schedule card, and I can't remember if it was from my junior or senior season. But the only reason I now have it in my possession is because maybe 6 or 7 years ago, I was going through a tough time at work and trying to balance it all. And my parents mailed it to me. And they said, listen, if this girl can do the things that she did on the field and the things that she did in the classroom, then you can for sure do what you need to do right now to get through what you need to get through. And it was just like, oh, first of all, you kept that. And second of all, I was like, yeah, I can do that. We used to run crazy sprints, and I used to show up to class with blood on my knuckles. I'm that girl. Yeah. So it was a nice reminder of kind of the things I'd accomplished and how I still had that in me to get through what I was going through at that time too.
Nice. Great story. Well, thanks so much for joining us today. And I'm sure it was nice to be able to look back and have some good memories from your time. And one of the things we've, as you mentioned, one of the things we're trying to do is reconnect with alumni and using this podcast, which has been with current student athletes. As we get ready for whenever our next games are, we thought it was a great time to look back and check in with some of our alumni, and appreciate you taking the time to do that today.
Awesome. Yeah. And thank you for having me. I think I'm just excited as a former athlete, as the current athletes are, to see them take the field again and get back to that competition that they all love and grow from. So just keep up the great work. And I know Boofa's training hard.
They're excited to practice.
Boofa pride. Yeah.
For sure. They come back in from practice every day. They're smiling, just happy to be out there. It's good. They're trying. The freshmen along. It's tough for them this is their first taste of it all.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Boofa culture still lives on, and everyone's excited to get back out there.
Well, I'm following along on all the social channels, and I hope to see them in person soon. So looking forward to it.
Thanks again, Celeste.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to Terrier Tuesdays. Give us a follow on our social media accounts at BU Athletics on Twitter and Instagram for more content.